Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta. There's a lot going on this morning, as you might have imagined. It's very, very exciting. We have a pickup choir. These beautiful people all just showed up at 8:15 this morning to learn all this great music. Super grateful for all of you. And as many of you know, this is Reverend Anthony Makar's final service with us. And we have a lot of great music planned. The first being his favorite hymn, number 1064, Blue Boat Home. Please rise in body or in spirit. Travis and I are going to play it on piano and handbells. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Below me, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry seas, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home.
It's summertime, and for children's religious education, that means interesting and engaging workshop experiences which congregants are leading. For more information, please check your order of service. You can also talk to one of the hosts at the RE table in the social hall. After the service at 12:30, we offer religious education classes for adults, and once again, take a look at the order of service for more information. I especially want to highlight our Inquirers class, which is great for people wanting to learn more about this faith community. It meets in room 1 right off the social hall. The topic this week is local history, orientation, and generosity. At the same time, in the sanctuary, join Amelia Shinstone and Reverend Terrence Strauss for a discussion of Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility: Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism. The book is available for purchase in the UUCA bookstore. However, reading the book is not a requirement for attending the class. Together, we will explore the concept of white fragility, how it affects our lives, and how we might address the moral trauma of racism. And now, please be sure to take this moment to put your cell phone in its most reverent position. Thank you. Once again, we're glad you're here on this beautiful morning.
We shall not cease from exploration, writes poet T.S. Eliot. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is often the beginning. The end is where we start from. This is a mystery, and today we are engaging this mystery of coming home through departure, of last times coming round to first times, of beginnings born through endings. This is all a mystery. May it be so.
Let's say the chalice lighting words together. May the light of this flame illuminate our tradition of seeking, invite all who yearn for acceptance, and ignite our passion for justice and peace.
And now let us share in the warmth of this hospitable space. Greet each other with a handshake or a hug.
Our story today comes from a real-life incident related to us by Rachel Naomi Riemann, a medical doctor whose special focus is counseling those with chronic and terminal illness. The story is about a teenager named David. David was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes 2 weeks after his 17th birthday. He responded to it with all the rage of a trapped animal. He flung himself against the limitations of his disease, refusing to hold to a diet, forgetting to take his insulin, and using his diabetes to hurt himself over and over. Fearing for his life, his parents insisted he come into therapy. He was reluctant, but he obeyed. After 6 months of therapy, he'd not made much progress. But then he had a dream that was so intense, he didn't realize until later, after he had woken up, that he had even been asleep at all. In his dream, David found himself sitting in an empty room without a ceiling, facing a small stone statue of the Buddha. Now, he was not a religious person, so he didn't know much about Buddhism. All he knew was that he had a feeling of kinship with the statue, perhaps because this Buddha was a young man, not much older than himself. The statue's face was very still and peaceful, and it seemed to be listening to something deep within David. It had an odd effect on him. Alone in the room with it, David felt more and more at peace himself. David experienced this unfamiliar sense of peace for a while when, without warning, a steel gray dagger was thrown from somewhere behind him. It buried itself deep within the Buddha's heart. David was profoundly shocked. He felt betrayed by life and overwhelmed with feelings of despair and anguish. From his very depths, a single question emerged: why is life like this? And then the statue began to grow and grow and grow, so slowly at first that David was not sure it was really happening. This was the Buddha's way of responding to the knife. But its face remained unchanged, peaceful as ever. And though the Buddha grew, the steel gray knife did not change in size. As the Buddha grew larger, the knife eventually became a tiny gray speck on the breast of the enormous, smiling Buddha. Seeing this, David felt something release inside him. He could breathe again. He awoke with tears in his eyes. Here ends the story.
Our music for meditation is a song called There Will Be a Light by Ben Harper and the Blind Boys of Alabama. The part we will sing together goes like this. There will be a light. There will be a light. Try it with me. There will be a light. There will be a light. That will come back many times. You should sing it all of those times. Now time for our community meditation. Please settle in more comfortably. Close your eyes if you wish. And join us in singing There Will Be a Light. 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 Let the warmth of our love dry away all of your tears. Fear not, for we are with you. And we will fear not, with you here. There will be a light. There will be a light. There will be a light. There will be a light.
Let us put hands on hearts. Feel the warm connection there. Let love in this moment flow. Say to yourself silently, I will love myself, and I will love others, and that love will help to heal our world. And now here are the joys and sorrows of our beloved community. We send our love to Jerry Hadjushevitz, whose brother Joe passed away on Friday in Washington, D.C. Jerry was with him during his final days. Babs and Jerry would welcome emails and cards of condolence for their loss. At this time, I invite you to say out loud the names of people you are holding in your heart this morning. Let silence be our sanctuary now. We take in a deep breath. And then we exhale. We gently surrender to something larger than ourselves. We enter into the wise silence. There will be a light. 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 Let the warmth of our love magnify all of your bliss. Sing out, for we are with you. And together we're gonna give our thanks for this. There will be a light. 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 There will be a light.
Last night, many of us gathered here to share stories and memories of Reverend Anthony and his ministry with us. The beauty of ministry, of any ministry, is this: love never dies, and neither does wisdom. Neither do memories. May you continue to reap the gifts of this outstanding minister for many years to come. You will know those gifts in the moments when we say to each other, "What does success look like?" Anthony's ministry will still be with us in those moments. In the moments when we choose to laugh instead of sigh, Anthony's ministry will be with us still. In the moments when we support men expressing their emotions with care and compassion, Anthony's ministry will be with us. In the moments when the person next to you is singing the hymn, at the top of their lungs, Anthony's ministry will be with you, because that's what he does on Sunday mornings when he's next to me. But really, that's part of his wholehearted commitment to creative expression. Just expressing yourself creatively. Sing out. Just take up painting and become very amazing at it. Express yourself. We are so grateful to have this gift of your ministry, Anthony, especially the call to love ourselves, to love each other, and to let that love heal the whole world. Not love just when it's easy. No, not love just when it's comfortable, but when it is challenging, particularly when it is challenging to love. That's what will heal the whole world. Can I get an amen? Amen. That is the profound gift your ministry has given to us. We are so grateful. And now I'd like to invite Pat Harris and Kate Johnson to come forward in this abundant exchange and interchange of gift giving that is ministry.
Anthony has given us a great gift this morning. As you're aware, our beloved Anthony is a fine artist of merit. And I poked around a little bit, and I found a piece of his work that I think is very significant to our congregation. So Kate Johnson called Anthony and asked him if she could buy one of his pieces of work. And he said, "I want to give it to you." And he gave it to her. And it's a very intimate scale work. It's about the size of our choir folder here. So I had the opportunity to get it professionally enlarged through a process called giclée. And giclée process, we're going to unveil the piece now, is an enlargement, and it's an authentic work of art. So it's simply an enlargement of his wonderful work. It's called House of Spirit. And this is what I see in this painting. I see the fire of commitment. You see that? I see the fire of commitment. I see an arcade of spiritual passage. I see our home. I see the doorway to our new home. And if you study the painting, and I'm sure you will because it will be hanging here soon, there's other iconographic coloration and other illustrations that are very personal to the piece. So this is House of Spirits. Thank you, Anthony. And Kay Johnson's been working with me all along. She's going to have you sign the certificate, which will be mounted to the back of the work. This is for real.
Where do I sit on this side? This is like ridiculous.
Yay! Thank you. Thank you.
And on this Father's Day, we are giving away our plate this morning. The offering will go to Foster Care Support Foundation. Foster Care Support Foundation serves a vital and growing need throughout Georgia by providing free clothing, infant equipment, and developmental toys to thousands of children in foster and relative care. Foster Care Support Foundation is a nonprofit, but you can make your check payable to UUCA and indicate on the memo line whether this is a pledge or give away the plates. And of course, you can always text the amount you would like to give as well. So now we share in the bounty by offering our gift of financial support to support foster children in Georgia. And also, we continue to make financial contributions to benefit this ministry and all the ways this congregation will continue to grow and thrive. The offering will now be given and most gratefully received.
Well, they say people come, they say people go. This particular diamond was extra special. And although you may be gone and the world may not know, still I see you celestial. Like a lion you ran, like a goddess you rode, like an eagle you circled in perfect purple. So how come things move on? How come cars don't slow when it feels like the end of this world? When I should, but I can't let you. But when I'm cold, cold, when I'm cold, cold, there's a light that you give me when I'm in shadow. There's a feeling you give me, an everglow. Like brothers in blood, like sisters who ride, we swore on that night we'd be friends till we die. But the changing of winds and the way waters flow, life as short as the falling of snow. And now I'm gonna miss you, I know. But when I'm cold, cold in water rolled salt, and I know that you're with me, and the way you will show, and you're with me wherever I go. But you give me this feeling, this everglow. What I wouldn't give for a moment to hold. Yeah, I live for this feeling, this everglow. So if you love someone, you should let them know. Oh, the light that you left me will ever glow.
We are part of something that is bigger than we can understand, that changes lives, transforms lives in ways we will never fully know. We contribute to that mystery with gratitude. May this offering go far to bless many lives. in Georgia, beyond this place, and in our whole community. Blessings on this gift.
And now please join us in the dedication of the offering in your order of service. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action we call community, we dedicate our lives and these, our offerings.
How many of you are fathers or father figures to someone that you love in your world? Thank you so much for your fathering. Thank you for so much for your fathering on this Father's Day. I'm a proud father this morning. My daughter is here, and I'm so grateful. Sorry. I'm grateful. Okay. Phew. All right. So many years ago, my 23-year-old self was in graduate school taking a seminar on philosophy of mind. Socrates was my philosophical hero. His dictum of the unexamined life is not worth living. That was good philosophy for me. That was my guide. So I was excited entering into this seminar. I thought, well, okay, here in this philosophy of mind class, I'm going to get to the heart of the matter of what it means to be a spiritual being having a human experience. Consciousness, awareness is central to that journey. So class began. In walked the professor, and it all started, and I think he said something like this. Available teleosemantic theories are truth referential and are usually regarded as competing with use theories that are motivated by deflationary views of truth and reference. I argue, however, that we need the basic acceptance account independently of the fate of deflationism, and that it can be articulated in truth referentialist terms. Additionally, I argue that we need to combine it with teleosemantics. What? And very soon I felt that fire in my belly. That fire in my belly that said, this is not where it's at. This is not where it's at. Life is not being examined in this seminar. What the heck am I doing here? I actually said that right out loud in the middle of the seminar. Back then, I believed that philosophy has value only to the degree that it helps people become more alive and creative and resilient in the messy situations of our living. And I still believe that today, even more so today. You also need to know that all those years ago, I was coming to that seminar with more than Socrates on my mind. Part of this had to do with having read a bunch of books about Hinduism and Taoism and Buddhism, and stories like the one I'm about to tell are just par for the course. The story goes like this. The guru sat in meditation on a riverbank when a disciple bent down to place two enormous pearls at his feet, a token of reverence and devotion. The guru opened his eyes, lifted one of those pearls, and held it so carelessly that it slipped out of his hand. It rolled down the bank and plopped into the river. Well, the disciple was horrified. The pearl is a pearl of great price. He jumped into that water, diving after it, but couldn't find it. Diving again and again until late evening. No luck. Finally, all wet and exhausted, he roused the guru from his meditation. He said, "You saw where the pearl fell. Show me that spot so I can get that pearl back for you." And the guru, well, he lifted up that other pearl and he threw it into the river, and then he said, "Right there." I read stories like this And I felt again the old thirst to know why life was the way it was. I wanted to know more about the suffering that would send a person in search of a guru to begin with, to seek release. I wanted to know more about why humans suffer and the games that we play to guarantee this suffering, like the disciples' attachment to those pearls. I wanted to know if suffering is our fate, or if something better can happen for us. And if something better was possible, I wanted to know what was in my power to do, to manifest it, to be less the disciple and more the guru. I thirsted to know. And this thirst was already old in me because I had grown up, like every one of us, under conditions of struggle, and a yearning to be released to something better. The experience of trauma is a human universal, and its sources are many. One is evolution itself, the bloody and messy story of the struggle of our biological species to survive. Well, it is written into our brain structure, into our body structures, our minds, says psychiatrist Russ Harris. Our minds evolved to help us survive in a world fraught with danger. The number one priority of the primitive human mind was to look out for anything that might harm you and avoid it. The primitive human mind was basically a don't get killed device. In other words, evolution has tuned our minds towards the negative. Saber-toothed tiger threats are long gone, but these days we can be constantly worried about the other shoe dropping in the form of an IRS audit, or our kid being bullied at school, or being diagnosed with some disease. Evolution has also taught us to be wary of exclusion from the group, because group membership means safety. So today we may be constantly worried about doing something that might get us rejected, or worried about not fitting in, worried about making a fool of ourselves. Our minds are busy comparing ourselves with others. Am I too thin? Am I too fat? Too tall? Not tall enough? Taryn and me. Evolution, says psychiatrist Russ Harris, has shaped our brains so that we are hardwired to suffer psychologically, to compare, to evaluate, to criticize ourselves, to focus on what we are lacking, to rapidly become dissatisfied with what we have, and to imagine all sorts of frightening scenarios, most of which will never happen. And then he says, no wonder humans find it hard to be happy. No wonder any of us might search for some kind of guru to seek release. And this is only one flavor of trauma that is inflicted upon us. Another is being born into an identity that society marginalizes and oppresses. So is being born into an identity that society privileges. It is never about you personally. You personally deserve none of the prejudice and none of the privilege, but you get it anyway for reasons that are completely arbitrary. Color of your skin, structure of your plumbing. That was meant to be a little funnier than just as long as you get what I mean. Arbitrary. Shape of your nose. The impersonal social system injects bias in us. It injects isms in us, and so distorts character and distorts humanity. And the result is a world of haves and have-nots, and I guarantee you that world is full of suffering and struggle. Call this sort of trauma systemic trauma. But then there is the sort of trauma that is personal. Being born with juvenile diabetes, like David was, right, in the story from earlier. Or the death of a parent when you are young, or frankly, whenever a parent dies. It is traumatic. Family poverty, growing up in poverty. Abuse from someone you trusted, which is often because they suffered from a mental illness or some kind of addiction, which of course also becomes a sort of trauma. Happy families are all alike, says the writer Leo Tolstoy. Every unhappy family, however, every unhappy family, it is unhappy in its own way. But to complete this compressed taxonomy of human struggle, I want to mention some collective event traumas. And I'm talking about environmental disasters, right? They hurt lots of people at the same time. Wars, famines, the 9/11s that happen, the depressions that come upon communities and nations and scar them. These are collective scars. And one of these scars in particular is, and I want to call this anti-democratic, unrestrained capitalism. The anti-democratic, unrestrained capitalism of our 21st century America that is making the super rich richer at the expense of the 99% of the rest of us. It is a deep scar in the American psyche. We must heal that scar. It is scary. All of this struggle, systemic, personal, collective, we thirst to know what to do with this, and the thirst to know what to do with it in me was already old. By the time I was 23, not that I could articulate these various levels of trauma. That is one of the benefits of having been in this pulpit for 12 years, to sit with this, and to do more than that as well, to know more about why humans suffer and the games that we play to guarantee that suffering. Now, from what I have just said, you might be wondering why I'm continuing to talk, because why humans suffer, haven't I already explained that there are three sorts of traumas? I mean, there's the explanation right there. I've already articulated it. But I want to really emphasize this great gift that comes from Buddhism and other world religious traditions, and that is an insight that physical distress, physical pain, struggle, that's all one thing. But how people receive that, the sorts of stories that they tell themselves about that, where people sink the anchor of their fundamental sense of safety and vitality, all of that, that is another thing entirely. I did a lot of extracurricular reading as a young man in graduate school, and one of my favorite finds was a book entitled Zen Flesh and Zen Bones. Anybody familiar with that? Zen Flesh and Zen Bones. Paul Reps is the editor. You got to go out there and get it right now. Which is great. 2 more than last service. So good on you. See, Don pays attention. He pays attention. Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. A book that story after story helped me to see the big difference between the mere fact of pain, the mere fact of struggle, and the variety of spiritual responses to that, one of which could be suffering, but there could be other responses too. Here's an example of one of those stories, and it starts with the Zen master named Ryokan. Ryokan lived the simplest kind of life in a little hut at the foot of a mountain. One evening, a thief entered his hut, only to discover that there was nothing in it to steal. At that same time, Ryokan returned and caught the thief in the middle of it and said to this thief, Ryokan said, "You may have come a long way to visit me, and you should not return empty-handed. Please take my clothes as a gift." Well, the thief was bewildered. He took the clothes and he slunk away. And Ryokan watched him slink away. He sat there naked, and the moon was big and beautiful that night. And he looked at the moon And he said, "Poor fellow, I wish I could give him this beautiful moon." That's the story. I mean, it's like, clearly, Ryokan anchored his safety in something far beyond his possessions, right? He anchored his sense of safety and security, his fundamental safety and security, in something far beyond the security of his house, right? And the purpose of his life was something way more than just what is in it for me. He experienced something that I think all of us could reasonably agree was physically jarring, right? But the result to him was not spiritual suffering. Not at all. Which is in stark contrast to the thief, who is in a dire place of spiritual suffering, deeply so, to do what he was doing. Poverty has traumatized that thief, has stolen so much from him, and he is stealing what he feels owed back. He's stealing it back. It is all unfair from beginning to end, so why should he care about the unfair pain he is causing others? Stealing, for him, is like a survival strategy. Besides being the means of literal physical survival, it is a way of protesting unfairness in a society that allows for and enables poverty, and it is a way of shoring up his identity, his sense of personal dignity and value in a world where he has none of it. Do you get that language of survival strategy? You get that language of survival strategy? It is what we spiritual beings having a human experience do to cope with trauma. Trauma jars us, and because we don't yet know that our true safety can be anchored in something that the hard knocks of life cannot touch, because we do not know that, we must do something to take care of ourselves. We think we are in deep danger, and we must do something to take care of ourselves. And in my case, I learned early on that the thing I needed to do to take care of myself, my survival strategy, will involve three different things. The first thing it involved is I'm going to put a mask on my face, my mask to the world, that proclaimed that I was an achiever. I was excellent. I was successful. I was also a nice guy. No skeletons in my closet. No, nuh-uh, no way. Keep on moving. There's nothing to look at here. Keep on moving. That's number one. Number two, at home, I would make my personal needs disappear. Everything revolved around the borderline personality disorder crazy of my mother, that chaos of my mother, and I needed to manage that as best as I could. But as for what I needed, well, I had to put that to the side, right? That was wallpaper in my life. And then the third thing that I would do, survival strategy. I learned how to abandon myself and my needs. And whenever my needs tried to assert themselves in their authenticity and vulnerability, well, I felt shame. I disciplined myself with shame. I use shame as a cattle prod, really. Every time I'd feel like, here's a need I'd like, and I would bring myself back into line. So that's my tripartite survival strategy. It worked. I survived. But the thing about survival strategies is that there gets to be a time, always, there gets to be a time when you discover that it is bringing you far more unhappiness than happiness. That's just not working anymore. Or maybe a ryokan comes into your life. You're just doing your survival strategy thing, whatever it happens to be. You're just doing it. But his response to you in no way plays by the rules of your game. You are playing a finite game, and he is playing an infinite game. Got it? And you are bewildered. You slink away. Maybe you even take that person's clothes. You slink away. Something's happened. And maybe you start to wonder, if perhaps your life could be very different from something you had ever imagined. The title of this sermon is Four Noble Truths. And by now we have covered the first two truths. The first one is life is suffering. The second truth is suffering is caused by stuck behavior patterns that seek to bring about happiness but do not really. We have reasons for them, but which leads to the third noble truth. Life doesn't have to be this way. Growing up, I knew with inexplicable yet irrepressible certainty in a part of myself that was untouched by the rest of the chaos in my life, that suffering was not the last word and suffering was not the core of my existence or human existence in general. I felt this most keenly in the midst of nature, its beauty and its peace turning me on to a spark deep within myself. You know, I lived in a town called Peace River. There was the Peace River. People talk about the sacred. And from the first, I have believed it to be an ordinary, everyday kind of sacred, inherently present in nature, inherently present in human life. And when we tap into it, when we learn how to tap into it, when we are mindfully connected to it, we find that we are changed. Our relationships are strengthened. Our creativity is unleashed. Our possibilities are expanded. The way is opened to connecting with larger realities in life of gratitude, of forgiveness, of compassion, of justice. When we tap into it, or when it taps into us. David, from the story, suffering because he equates his true wellness with the health of his body. He is suffering because he rages against his juvenile diabetes. That's his survival strategy. But he has a dream one night, right? He dreams of a statue of the Buddha. And we know he was not a religious person in a formal sense. He didn't know much about Buddhism at all. It is just that something wise within him chose that image, felt a kinship with that Buddha image, and used it to say to David, here I am. Wellness, a wellness deep within David, which did not have to be installed. He was not a religious scholar. It was just there from the very beginning, already there. Hardwired in. Moses had his burning bush. David had his dream. And the dream told him his story. His physical sickness was like a steel gray dagger thrown into the heart of something innocent, the Buddha statue. David's response to this in the dream was like his response in real life. Anguish, rage. But then the Buddha statue changed, and in a way that echoed the countercultural wisdom of a ryokan. It just grew. The statue just grew bigger and bigger, meaning that while our egos play out their survival strategies and rage and curse at adversity and do whatever they do, the inner Buddha in every one of us responds in a very different way, just to grow. It's not that the physical pain of life is ever taken away. The physical daggers will never go away. But in the face of death and illness and natural disasters, tragedies of every sort, traumas of every sort, our souls can grow. And finally, every dagger assumes its proper proportion and place in the scheme of things. The spiritual suffering decreases while compassion and peace increase. All the tension within us, the way we can hold our bodies throughout the course of our days, the way we can hold our bodies with stiffness as if we are waiting for life to ambush us at any moment. We can let that tension just go. We can live in this world knowing whatever the ups and downs may be, we can say to this world, yes. Accept all that it brings, all the ups and downs. And our eyes will fill with tears. Our eyes will fill with tears because that means that love is growing in our hearts. The Four Noble Truths was the Buddha's very first sermon, and it was one of my first to you. And it concludes with a very long description of the fourth truth, which articulates the various disciplines and practices that essentially can turn a thief into a Zen master. The Buddha called it the Noble Eightfold Path. But here, all I will say, as this, my last sermon to you, ends, is that grace is real. By that I mean, we can be working so hard to find or create meaning and purpose in our lives. We're working so hard, though, that we're not paying attention to all the meaning and purpose that is already always around us, just waiting to be seen by us. If we would just stop trying so damn hard. Even when we are not seeking, or we don't even know how to seek, we are sought after. Sometimes we are just like the thief, just mechanically living out our survival strategy du jour. But then a ryokan comes into our lives, shows us that something completely different could be possible. And we are left wondering, what the hell just happened? And maybe something better in my life could be possible. And I give thanks for how so often you have entered my life like ryokan. And then sometimes we are so deep in our suffering that we are eaten up by it. We don't even think we have anything else in our lives. We are just our suffering. And it seems that no one can help. But there is a deep wisdom and wellness within each of us, which is the anchor of our true safety and security that nothing else external can diminish. And perhaps it has already made itself known to you as it made itself known to David through his dream. And if it has not made itself known to you, I commend to you the discipline of practicing wise silence, to let the clutter of your mind just fall away, and to allow yourself to be found, because that's it. The sacred is seeking you. Let yourself be found. Knives are always being thrown. Change happens and pain happens. But know this best of all philosophies, you are fundamentally Buddhas. You are fundamentally Buddhas. Even as you seek, you are sought after. You don't need a graduate degree for the spiritual life. Don't despair. Just grow. Amen. I invite you to turn in your order of service to the insert, the ritual of releasing. That is there. I invite you to say that with me And you can sit down for this. I'll stand up for you. The ritual of releasing. And it's all scripted here because otherwise I'm just going to like cry for 10 minutes. For 12 years, you have offered me your free pulpit and freedom of creativity in worship. For this ministry of worship, I am grateful, and I hereby return the worship ministry to your able hands and hearts. You have welcomed me into the transitional moments of your lives. In times of sorrow and crisis, and also in times of great joy. It has been a privilege to serve you in your times of need. I now return the ministry of pastoral care into your able hands and hearts. Thank you for your pastoral care you offer us. We accept the responsibility, passion, and care for one another, and release you from your role as pastor. You have asked me to lead you in works of justice and compassion and to stand with you in our commitment to build a better world. I return the prophetic ministry to your hands. Use it to take the teachings of Unitarian Universalism beyond these walls. Thank you for your prophetic voice and witness. We release you from your role as teacher and inspirer. You have asked me to serve as head of staff and professional leader of this congregation. I am grateful for our partnership in fundraising, visioning, leadership development, and strategic planning. I return the ministry of administration and stewardship to you with confidence. Thank you for your leadership and release you from guidance. The bond between a minister and the congregation that has chosen that minister is a sacred covenant. Looking back, we celebrate together promises kept and offer forgiveness for promises broken. As we part, our respective ministries will continue as separate flames, bringing light to the world in new and unique ways. With love and gratitude, I release you from our covenant with one another. In mutual blessing, let us say together, Amen. Thank you.
Our final hymn this morning is called Life Calls Us On. Please rise in body or in spirit. Here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known, with a pledge to one another that we journey not alone. Sorrow make us wise, akin to all that lives and dies. Love calls us on. Love calls us on. Words and deeds of those before us, waken here to keep us strong.
benediction, I wanted to have a bit of like a passing the torch sort of ritual to this wonderful minister who I love as a friend and so admire as a colleague. You have no idea the good things that she's going to bring this congregation in her leadership, her visionary leadership, and her warm heart. So a passing of the torch, and that torch just didn't seem safe in this space. And it was also very important that whatever symbol was used, it did not in any way suggest that she's going to like be a carbon copy of me. She's going to be herself. And so I thought about this plate that I have spoken of before in this worship service. It is 119 years old. It's a silver plate that was given to this congregation in 1900 from the Universalist youth sort of ministry of this nation, given to this congregation. And I thought to myself, this is a great symbol for this congregation, which existed long before I was even born, and Taryn, and will exist long before we're gone. This congregation and ministry is about good stewardship as far as possible of this congregation, its spirit, its potential, its history, its future. And so love stirs in the midst of this community. May you be a good steward of discerning in partnership with this congregation what love is asking us to do and to be in this day here in Atlanta for the healing of as many people as possible. I hand this plate to you.
Loyal guides in love and duty, loyal guides, bring us with the frosted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and right. Prize. By their work we realize faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared a radiant hour. The Spirit's gracious power, Spirit of grace, dream the good that yet to be. For good, bright the path before us lies. Joyful pilgrims, now we rise. Life calls us on. 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 Life calls us on.
Go in peace, UUCA. Go in peace. You are all